The U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Donald Lu wrapped up his day-long visit to Nepal late yesterday. A number of Palis kept the visiting U.S. official busy throughout the day as he expressed happiness with the smooth implementation of U.S.-funded MCC Nepal Compact. This was Lu's third visit to Kathmandu after being assigned to look after South and Central Asian affairs and is currently on a tour of several South Asian nations. Good morning, I'm Sarah Sapsanamma. Let's begin with the headlines of the hour. Nepal's livestock farmers incur a loss of about 50 billion rupees in 2 years. Farmers displaced in the face of government apathy as the speaker issues a ruling. Over 22,000 availed themselves of public service through reservation quota in the past 16 years. The reservation group still dissatisfied. Policy to review the provision ignored. French President Emmanuel Macron welcomes Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Elysee Presidential Palace as the Indian Premier becomes this year's guest of honor at the Bastille Day Military Parade. And a much-anticipated clash awaits at the final of Wimbledon as Djokovic all set to clash against Alcaraz. The women's final will see a contest between Ons Jabeur and unseeded Marketa Vondrousova. Speaker Devraj Ghimire has made a ruling at the Parliament to be informed about a lumpy skin disease that has taken the form of epidemic in the livestock. Speaker Ghimire's ruling came as the lawmakers demanded the government's response to the lumpy skin epidemic. The lawmakers blasted the government for its continued apathy, even as the pandemic has dented the livestock farmers. The parliamentarians also demanded an immediate treatment of the disease, urging the government to make the vaccines available at the earliest. The lumpy skin disease that started from Koshi province 4 months ago has spread to different regions, accounting for a collective loss of 37 billion rupees, while the disease has killed 27,000 cattle as of now. And it's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion. The question is, why has the government not introduced any relocation programs for farmers who incurred heavy losses in livestock farming? Your options are A, not understanding the issue, B, confusion in jurisdiction, and C, lack of budget. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Donald Lu called on the Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and other top brass leaders during his one-day visit to Nepal yesterday. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Donald Lu, who also looks into South and Central Asian affairs, paid courtesy call to Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal. Lu, during the meeting with Prime Minister, offered his condolences at the demise of Sita Dahal, the spouse of Prime Minister Dahal. Prior to this, the visiting U.S. official also called on Foreign Minister N.P. Saud. The Foreign Ministry sources have said that the meeting dwelt on implementation aspect of the MCC Nepal Compact. Lu also met with Nepali Congress Chief Sher Bahadur Dewa and UML Chairperson KP Sharma Oli. It may be recalled that Lu had taken special initiative for the endorsement of MCC Nepal Compact and much debated SPP, or the State Partnership Program. The U.S. Secretary of State returned from a Qatar Airways flight late yesterday evening. It has been 16 years that reservation quota was introduced in the public service as the government promoted the policy of inclusivity. The reservation policy simply aims at embracing people from all sectors, gender, indigenous nationalities, cultures and religion at levels of government bodies. There is a provision to review such policy every 10 years, but it has been ignored so far. The reservation quota was introduced in Nepal in the year 2007, 16 years ago. As per the existing laws, the quota has been embraced for women, indigenous nationalities, Madhesi, Dalit, physically challenged and marginalized communities in the country. 45% of the quota is shared among the 6 reservation groups under the system. Recently, Khas Arya and Muslim have also been added to the group. The reservation provision in the country was introduced even before the promulgation of the Constitution in 2015. The system should have been reviewed 6 years ago. However, the successive governments have remained indifferent towards any form of revision and amendments to the system. As per the Public Service Commission's annual report, nearly 22,700 people have availed of the reservation quota, landing in different government jobs. Kantipur Television completed its 20 years of establishment yesterday. Addressing a function hosted yesterday to felicitate at the 20th anniversary, Chairperson and Managing Director of Kantipur Media Group, Kailash Siroya, viewed what he said a flood of fake news won't last long in the Nepali society and that the need of the hour was to prioritize fact-based news. Chairperson Siroya pledged to take Kantipur television to newer heights amid the challenges.
यो फेक न्यूजको खेतीहरू धेरै चाँडो इन्टरनेशनल न्यूजहरुमा पनि आउन थालिसक्यो। अघि उहाँले पनि भन्नुभयो रिटर्सको सीईओले सर्वे दियो, त्यो धेरै चाँडो नै सकिने वाला छ। सो हामी हतोत्साहित नहौं र यही जोश जाँगरलाई अझ अलिकता चार्ज रूपमा अगाडि बढौं।
Likewise, Director of Kantipur Television, Ganesh Agrawal, observed that KTV would continue to remain the #1 TV channel of the country.
आतिनु पर्दैन, हाम्रो सम्पूर्ण टिम सँगै छन् र आउने दिनमा 20 वर्ष पुगेका हुँदाखेरि हामीले झन् अलि बलियो जागर राखेर #1 छौं र #1 मा हमेशा राख्ने छौं भन्ने मलाई विश्वास लागेको छ।
Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of Kantipur Television, Sishir Pachai, viewed that despite challenges, KTV was capable to work under adverse circumstances.
अहिले हामी चौबाटोमा आएका छौं, चौबाटोमा उभिएका छौं। एउटा यस्तो क्रस रोड जहाँ हात-हातमा क्यामेरा छ, पत्रकारको स्वरूपमा जथाभावी कन्टेन्टको थुप्रो, तिमा पनि नेगेटिभिटीलाई बढी जोड दिएर सोसाइटीलाई ड्राइभ गर्ने उद्देश्य देखिन्छ।
Editor-in-Chief of Kantipur Television, Dilbhushan Pathak, expressed his confidence that Kantipur Television would overcome a barrage of fake news that has overwhelmed what he said the new media.
हामीले हाम्रो व्यावसायिक कौशलतामा, हाम्रो अरु प्राविधिक ज्ञानमा, अरु डिजिटल नलेजमा हामीले आफूलाई रिइन्भेन्ट गरेर दर्शक श्रोताहरूको बदलिदो स्वभाव र रुचिलाई ध्यानमा दिएर अरु धेरै अध्ययन गर्नुपर्ने छ।
During the anniversary function, journalists and employees were awarded for their outstanding contribution. Vikas Thapulia from the news department, Bhuvan Pandey among district reporters were felicitated. Siddhartha Bhandari from finance department, Raju Karki from Kantipur studio, Rajesh Katwal from engineering and Ganesh Karki from the administration were also awarded. The Central Investigation Bureau in recent time has been intensifying investigations into controversial and infamous cases like the Lalita Niwas land scam and the fake Bhutanese refugees scandal. Corruption watchdog, the Commission for the Investigation of Abuse of Authority, CIAA, meanwhile has remained a mere spectator despite its much sought-after role. Furthermore, the authority's leadership itself has been alleged of involvement in the refugee scam. This has raised question on the ethical aspects of the entity. Complaints had been filed in relation to those cases at the authority. However, the CIA has been found giving cover to those alleged of involvement and putting on hold the fake Bhutanese refugee scam. The authority also failed to initiate investigation into allegations of irregularities in the procurement of wide-body aircraft, security press procurement, and procurement of medicines and equipment during COVID pandemic, among a host of other financial irregularities that have rocked the nation in recent time. This has raised valid questions on the intention of the authority leadership and its officials. The officials, meanwhile, have been dodging the questions on the pretext of lack of laws. There are currently 18,000 cases at the CIA that have been left unattended. The authority has been limited to registering over 3 to 4 cases at a maximum at the special court every week. In our Public Voice segment, we've asked in several provinces what should be done to make CIAA more effective. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
पार्टीगत भावना बगेर नेताहरूको घर दैलो चाहर्दै आयुक्तहरू गयो भने यो चाहिँ प्रभावकारी हुन सक्दैन।
दैनिक जसो चाहिँ अख्तियारमा मुद्दाहरू परिरहेका छन्, यो मुद्दालाई चाहिँ चाँडो किनारा लगाएर यसलाई चाहिँ अझ प्रभावकारी रूपमा अगाडि बढायो भने
खै केही भइहाल्यो भने छापा मार्नु भन्दा पनि बेला बेलामा चाहिँ छड्के पनि अनुगमन गर्नु पर्यो।
अख्तियार छ भन्ने जनताको विश्वास छ, त्यो विश्वास चाहिँ कायम राखेर प्रभावकारी ढङ्गले अगाडि बढ्नुपर्छ।
जसरी त्यो अख्तियार एकदम सक्षम छ, आफ्नो स्वतन्त्र छ, त्यस्तै त्यसमा भएको व्यक्तिलाई पनि स्वतन्त्र राख्नुपर्छ, कसैको दबावमा चाहिँ आउनु हुँदैन।
सत्य तथ्यहरूमा गएर कसैको ठुलो पहुँच छ भने त्यसलाई छोड्ने काम गर्नु भएन, निष्पक्ष हुनुपर्छ।
योग्य व्यक्तिलाई छनौट गरेर चाहिँ अब अगाडि कामहरू अगाडि बढाउनु पर्यो।
अख्तियार आयोग चाहिँ राजनीति क्षेत्रभन्दा बाहिर हुनु पर्यो।
भ्रष्टाचारको अखाडा बन्नु भएन, आफै
विज्ञ व्यक्तिलाई अख्तियारमा ल्याउनु पर्यो।
राजनीतिक दलको हस्तक्षेप बिना नै उहाँहरूले चाहिँ आफ्नो किसिमले काम गर्न पाउनुपर्छ।
आयोगहरू हुन्छ, त्यसमा राजनीतिक नियुक्तिहरू चाहिँ धेरै हुन्छ, त्यो चलखेललाई चाहिँ बन्द गर्नु पर्यो।
कहाँ के हुँदैछ भने त्यो निगरानी कडा राख्नु पर्यो।
पैसामुखी हुनु भएन।
नातावाद कृपावादमा नलागिकन समान रूपमा चाहिँ अनुसन्धान गर्यो भने चाहिँ यो प्रभावकारी हुन सक्छ।
अख्तियार दुरुपयोग अनुसन्धान आयोगको नजरमा सानो ठुलो मान्छे बराबर हुनु, सबैले बराबरै कारबाही हुनुपर्छ।
आयोग राजनीतिक हस्तक्षेपबाट पूर्णतया मुक्त हुनुपर्दछ।
It's time now for the international update. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is a trained lawyer, has reiterated there is no entity like Wagner, as Article 359 of Russia's criminal code outlaws mercenary activity, stating that recruitment, training, financing or other material support of a mercenary, as well as their participation in an armed conflict or military operations, carries heavy criminal penalties. During an interview this week, Putin explained that the State Duma, which is Russia's parliament, should consider legislation to legalize private military companies. Until Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine last year, the Kremlin essentially denied the existence of Wagner. That changed in the months that followed, as Wagner managed to secure some symbolic victories for Russia, especially in the bitter fighting around the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. However, Putin's statement comes in contradiction to his own acknowledgement back in June that the maintenance of the entire Wagner Group was fully provided for by the state, with the government allocating more than 86 billion rubles, or around $1 billion, for the maintenance of Wagner forces between 2022 and May 2023. Meanwhile, Putin has said he had proposed to Wagner Group fighters that a senior mercenary known as Sedoy command them instead of Yevgeny Prigozhin. Sedoy is a senior Wagner commander. Amid these developments, the whereabouts of former Wagner head Yevgeny Prigozhin is still unknown. Some international media have hinted he has been killed by Ukrainians. Experts are warning of the dangers of extreme heat affecting swaths of the U.S., with human-caused climate change blamed by many for the high temperatures. More than 100 million Americans are facing a prolonged spell of sweltering weather into next week, with the National Weather Forecast issuing heat advisories for cities and towns countrywide. High pressures sitting over the southern states are causing the extreme heat. Lead meteorologist from the National Weather Service office in Phoenix, Sean Benedict, told Reuters and advised people to limit the time they spend outside. Susan Joy Hassel, director of the NGO Climate Communication, said the result of climate change will not only be seen by heat waves, but other extreme weather situations such as severe floods or worsening tornadoes. In many places in the Southwest, where hot summers are the norm, extreme temperatures could break records. The United States, South Korea and Japan have jointly condemned the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile by North Korea, pledging to work with the international community to tighten sanctions against Pyongyang. In a joint statement last night, the three allies said they would push to block North Korea's illicit revenue generation through overseas workers and malicious cyber activities that they said the country uses to fund its weapons programs. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also met his Japanese and South Korean counterparts on the sidelines of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations ASEAN Summit in Indonesia yesterday. North Korea fired the ICBM on Wednesday, and it landed in waters between the Korean peninsula and Japan. 2 days earlier, North Korea slammed a U.S. plan to deploy nuclear submarines near the Korean peninsula, warning that the move could incite the worst crisis of nuclear conflict in practice. On Thursday, North Korea's United Nations ambassador Kim Song told the UN Security Council that the ICBM launch aimed to deter dangerous military moves of hostile forces and safeguard the security of the country. French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Elysee Presidential Palace as the Indian leader was this year's guest of honor at the Bastille Day military parade. Modi and Macron watched French and Indian soldiers march down the tree-lined Champs-Élysées Avenue in Paris, while French-made Rafale fighter jets India bought in 2015 took part in a flypast over the Arc de Triomphe. Modi began a two-day visit to Paris that he has sealed high-profile defense deals on Thursday when he was granted the Legion of Honor, France's highest award. New Delhi gave initial approval to buy an extra 26 Rafale jets for its navy and 3 Scorpion-class submarines, deepening defense ties with Paris at a time the two nations are seeking allies in the Indo-Pacific. The total value of the purchase is expected to be around $9.75 billion, even as that was still subject to negotiations. That is all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.